The Art of Leadership Network.
Hey leaders, welcome to the LeadCulture Podcast. I'm your host, Jenni Catron, founder and CEO of the Foresight Group, where our mission is to cultivate healthy leaders to lead thriving teams. This podcast is for leaders who want more than just good intentions. You want clarity, confidence, and practical tools to lead well in the real world. Each week, I'll guide you to navigate the challenges of leadership and culture with insight that you can actually put into practice. We'll explore what it really takes to lead yourself well, because the way you show up as a leader shapes everything, from your decisions to your team's health and momentum. My goal is to equip you to lead with purpose, strengthen your culture, and create environments where people and organizations flourish. Along the way, you'll hear honest conversations, real stories, and proven frameworks, from leadership and culture topics to insights from guests and leaders who are committed to doing the work of leading well. So whether you're leading a team, an organization, or simply working to grow as a leader, you're in the right place. Let's dive in and continue this leadership journey together. Well, friends, welcome back. I am so glad you're here. And I have a new friend joining me today on the podcast, MJ Pittman. I got the chance to meet just last month at the beginning of December. We were at a high capacity speakers event where we were both getting coached by John Maxwell, Ryan Leak, and MJ and I sat down next to each other at the dinner the night before. And MJ, you were just so quickly, so curious, asking good questions, and so eager to just get to know myself and the other speakers that were there. And I just walked away going, this is somebody I want to know more. So you guys, MJ is a successful business owner. He's an expert financial coach, and he's a phenomenal speaker. He took the house down at this event we did in Florida with the high capacity speakers. And so MJ, thanks for joining me. Super excited to have the conversation with you today.
Jenni, my friend, I am so excited to be with you. Thank you so much for having me. After the event, you said, hey, I'd love for you to be on the podcast. I was like, man, I get to be on the podcast with Jenni. What a privilege. And so I am so excited to be here and add some value to your audience. And I'm so appreciative that you have me here.
Well, I was excited just to have further conversation because, again, it was super busy couple of days together, quickly trying to learn each other's stories. And then, of course, after the fact, I've been stalking you on social media, just continuing to get to know you better. But give everybody a little bit of your backstory, kind of your career journey. We want to talk today about the trust recession and the leader's responsibility, but give everybody context to what your leadership journey's looked like so far.
Yeah, most definitely. And so as Jenni mentioned, I have a background in finance. I was one of the youngest mutual fund brokers in the country at the age of 21, which is just a fancy way of saying that I help people invest their money. And then following that, I went from practitioner to teacher. And so I travel all around the world to colleges and universities, teaching students and staff how to manage their money after they graduate. And as I was doing the work of that, what I realized was that I knew how to build trust in a way that created more revenue and more opportunity, right? At the end of the day, I realized, man, people are choosing me not because I am the cheapest, because I'm actually about 60% more expensive than my competition. And it's not because I am convenient to book, because my schedule is very busy, but they are booking me because they trust me. And so it really created I don't know how to best say, a curiosity around what is it that I'm doing well. It's like, if you don't know why something is going well when it's working, you don't know how to fix it once it breaks. And
so true.
I was like, well, what am I doing that's working? And as I peel back the layers of the onion, I realized that there are certain things that impact trust. And when you know those things, you can create movement and momentum in the direction of influence that you're looking for. And so I think that many times leaders, salespeople, whoever, they think, man, maybe in order to get the ball rolling, I need to be more charismatic, or I need to lower my prices, or like they go into all of these different strategies when if they were just super firm on trust, a lot of the other dominoes would fall. And so I'm really excited to talk about that. You know, I talked about the trust recession a little bit while we were at the John Maxwell event. I like to use financial language, so trust recession as it relates to, business and leadership concepts. And I'm really excited to talk about it with you today.
So good. You guys, I told MJ this before we started recording the podcast, but it was like, this was technically, and I still don't fully believe this, MJ, but you say that was your first keynote. And I know you do workshops and all other things. And so I believe you, but you guys, MJ was so exceptional. He literally did bring the house down. Like, I mean, John Maxwell couldn't respond quickly enough to his enthusiasm for how you delivered that keynote. But I think what was also fascinating was how you integrate the trust language with the financial concepts. And we can't completely remake that here today.
Sure.
But we talk a little bit about what you mean by a trust recession as it relates to leadership and a leader's influence.
Most definitely. And so when I use the word trust recession, what I mean by that is that we are in a world to where everybody is skeptical, right? We live in the information age. We have more information at our fingertips than ever before. And yet this flood of information has created just as many questions as answers, right?
So good.
Like many times people think, oh, when I have more information, I have more clarity. But you and I both know, Jenni, that when people get on Instagram and they're scrolling, the questions they're asking are, is this AI?
Yeah, right. Yes.
Are these before and after pictures from this fitness influencer Photoshop? You go on Amazon, are these reviews real? Right? You know, you go on Facebook and you're scrolling and you see an ad for something you were talking to your friends about the day before. You're like, is Facebook spying on me and listening to my conversation? Like, people have trust issues, right? We are in a trust recession. But the challenge with that as leaders is that we all know if you want to build a great team, you need trust, right? If you want to keep great talent, you need trust. If you want high customer retention, you need trust. And so in the workshop I did with John Maxwell, I talked about the idea of deposits, right?
Yeah.
And making deposits with your team and with your customers. I talked about the idea of building equity with people. And then I also talked about the idea of beneficiaries, the people who get to go further faster because of the trust and the reputation you've built. And so I love using that financial language. It's a lot of fun. And there's even more that could go into it, right? You know, when I think about the money and financial, when I think about things like appreciation, right? You know, we all want our stock portfolios to appreciate, but what you appreciate appreciates. And so what does that look like? What does appreciation look like with your team and your clients and those small, thank yous you can make to make a difference? And so that gives people a little taste, a little idea of what the trust recession is and how it could impact their leadership.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, and I've heard that phrase a lot. And, even my team, as we're working on, the work that we do with leaders and teams and noticing it, the time it takes to build the relationship that builds trust, that creates the engagement and makes somebody comfortable with investing in the work that we're doing. It's just significant. And to your point, when you rattled off all the things we're skeptical about, that's 100% true, right? Like we've had to condition ourselves to be skeptical because we don't know whether we can trust everything we see just at face value. And what does that look like for leaders? Like, as you're thinking about the reality of a trust recession, and you hit this a little bit, but I want you to dig into it a little more for us as leaders of like, I've had this happen, MJ, I'll preface it with this. In the LeadCulture framework, one of the tools that we have is called the culture hierarchy of needs. And we talk about how, just like Maslow's hierarchy of human needs, that there are needs employees have to be engaged in an organization. And the first two layers of the hierarchy, without totally reteaching this. Most of the listeners will be aware of this. The first two layers of the hierarchy are things that the leaders need to do and provide. And in doing so, they're building trust. I've had leaders push back on me because the middle of the framework is psychological safety, or, is really kind of a fancy phrase for trust, right? Like there's enough trust in the environment where we're actively contributing, we feel safe to do so, et cetera.
Sure.
And my premise on that is that there's things that leaders need to provide, and oftentimes they're very practical. Like just make sure I have equipment that works, that that I'm paid fairly, that I'm being trained and equipped well, that I have clarity of my role and my responsibilities. Because if I have all those things, then I can more confidently contribute. There's a measure of trust that I have because my leaders have given me things that I need to succeed. And I've had leaders push back on that because they're like, oh, well, they should just trust us because, we love them, or because we have a relationship, or because, and what I'm noticing is that leaders will sometimes take for granted things that they need to provide that actually build trust. Does that spark any thoughts for you because you live in this trust conversation so much?
Yeah, it does. The first thing that I would say is that this trust recession that we're in, the skepticism that we have, is actually not a bad thing. It's biological. Whenever we see things that are novel or uncertain or dangerous, our brains automatically hyper-focus on that threat in order to ensure that we are free from hurt, harm, danger, and safe, right? And so I think that sometimes people could see skepticism as a negative thing when skepticism is the reason that we survive as human beings. We are not
It's actually helpful.
Yes, absolutely. It's helpful. It's biological. We are not animals, right? We're not antelopes in the African Sahara, looking over our shoulders for lions, tigers, and cheetahs. But there are things that when we are concerned about, allow for us to say, wait, hold on. I need to make sure I'm safe. I need to go to safety and ensure that I can survive. And I think that that's where a lot of leaders get it wrong. They confuse trust with likability. So whenever you say, oh, because of our relationship, because I'm a good guy, because I'm charismatic, whatever, it's just like, no, likability creates the byproduct of connection, while trust creates the byproduct of safety.
Oh, yeah. Say that one more time.
Likability byproduct is connection. We can hang out. We can grab a drink together. We can go out for coffee. But trust is a function of safety. Am I willing to risk my time, money, reputation, and career on what you are saying?
Yeah.
And so when people understand that, then now they understand, okay, the first thing I need to do is to create an environment of safety. And you know what, Jenni? In order to create an environment of safety, it just comes down to one word. And you know what that one word is?
Tell us.
Predictability.
Oh. Yep.
Predictability. Yep. Trust is built off of predictability. How do I know I'm going to get paid well? Because every 2 weeks on the 1st and 15th, it's the same amount every single 2 weeks. It's predictable, right? And so how do I know that whenever I go to my car in my garage and I put the key in the ignition and I turn it, that it's going to turn on? Because of predictability. I now trust my vehicle, right? I know what it's like. I've been broke before, okay? So I know what it's like.
When that doesn't work.
I know what it's like to have a car that was unpredictable that I don't trust, right? But predictability it is the foundation of trust. And so when people are asking for clarity in their role, what they are asking for is this. Is there something that I can do that is clear that will create the predictable outcome of my boss being satisfied with me?
So well said. So good.
Because if I don't have clarity in my role, then I could be doing work that has an unpredictable outcome as it relates to my performance reviews, my career, and my professional ascension, right? So,
Right.
like, predictability is a huge piece. And predictability has different buckets, right? Because there's predictability under normal conditions, Jenni, to where
Yep.
it's, I know that you're in Wisconsin, so it's probably different for you, but right now in Dallas, Texas, it's about 78 degrees outside, sunny.
Oh, why do you have to tell me this right now?
It could be April for all I know. I mean, it's beautiful weather. And so there's a level of predictability that I have around like maybe how my car is going to operate in normal conditions. And so the question for leaders is, am I showing predictability in normal conditions?
Yes,
on the
that's
average,
great.
on the average Monday meeting, on the average Wednesday check-in, am I high this day, low that day, even though all other conditions seem to be fairly the same, or am I predictable?
Mm-hmm.
So there's predictability in normal conditions.
Yeah.
But guess what? People also need to see predictability in stressful conditions.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Ooh, that one's painful.
because we all know the only thing that stays the same is that things are always changing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what happens in stressful situations is that it reveals inside of the leader what's been in there the whole time. Right?
That's right. Yep.
It kind of reminds me of like if you were to squeeze an orange, Jenni, what type of juice do you expect to come out?
Orange juice.
Orange juice, right? like you don't expect apple juice or grape juice to come out, right?
Right. Right.
Because we all understand the fundamental principle that when you put stress on something, what's inside of it comes out.
Comes out.
And so in that same way, if you are in an unpredictable, stressful situation as a leader, but you're showing that you're steady, you're recognizing the reality of the situation, but you're not catastrophizing the situation. You're not focusing on the uncontrollables. You're focusing on the things that you can do and the actions you can take to create quick wins and move things forward. That creates predictability in uncertain conditions, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to like go too deep, but like I have more. But like those are a couple of things that, from a predictability standpoint, make a big difference.
That's fantastic. Gosh. And I mean, every one of us as leaders is sitting here listening to this and like thinking about those moments of like, okay, how am I showing up? And because we give ourselves, a pass, or we give ourselves excuses for that. The other factor that I'm thinking about as you're sharing all of that and why it makes this so challenging, I think sometimes for leaders, because I don't want to discredit the fact that this is also really hard. We talk a lot around here, MJ, about self-leadership, right? We got to lead ourselves well to lead others better. It's a core tenet of foresight.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking, what's happening in those uncertain or stressful conditions is there's usually a myriad of things behind the scenes that your team never knows because you as the leader have the responsibility for shouldering it.
Yeah.
And so then how much more challenging it is to show up with predictability, consistency in those moments. It takes a lot of self-awareness, a lot of self-leadership. I don't want to diminish the fact, but to your point, that predictability is so critical to the trust we're building or eroding with our teams, right?
Yeah, most definitely. But, to that point, Jenni, I would also say that as leaders, we have a responsibility to trust ourselves too.
Say more to that. Yeah.
We're leaders for a reason, right? And so whenever we're in unpredictable situations ourselves, it's not just, hey, team, trust me, but is MJ looking at MJ in the mirror? Is Jenni looking at Jenni in the mirror and say, hey, listen, I don't know how things are going to turn out, but I know that I've always found a way to figure it out. That's why
good.
I am where I am, right? It kind of reminds me of like the African
Look at the
proverb.
track record.
Yeah, the track record, right? Look at the track record. Like I think about the African proverb of the bird, where it's like when a bird lands on a branch, its trust is not in the stability of the branch, but in its own wings. To where even if the branch falls, it can find a solution, right? And
Right.
so I think sometimes we
That's
need
good.
to have a conversation with one another to ourselves of like,
Mhm.
hey, do I trust my wings right now? And
Yeah.
in those moments, we just have to look at the track record and our abilities and our character and who we are as people and our motives and know that, hey, no matter how all this stuff works out, like things are going to work out. If you're a person of faith,
Mhm.
not saying you have to be to listen to this podcast, but if you are a person of faith, it's just, I may not know how things are going to work out, but I know the God who works all things out together for
Yep.
the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. And so that is the thing, is that trust comes from our team, but it also needs to be an internal conversation we have with ourselves too.
That's really good. Yeah. That's so well said, because even this past year was a bit of I will say, a stretching year. And there's a point in there that I was like, wait a minute. Like, I've led through hard times before.
Yep.
I've led through difficult things before. Like
Yep.
so that trust yourself thing is even kind of speaking to me of like, wait a minute. Like, obviously, as a person of faith like you, I'm going to God and asking for wisdom and guidance and discernment and, in those moments. But at the same time, trusting what he's put in you and how he's, equipped you in the past to be able to do the things. So that's meaningful. That's good. That's really good.
Yeah,
Gosh,
absolutely.
I'm trying to decide which way I want to go, MJ, because you've got so much good stuff for us. You posted 5 questions that someone asks before they trust you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is helpful because, again, I think sometimes as leaders, we forget to anticipate what somebody else is thinking or asking, or what's on their mind. Again, we're making assumptions about what they should think or why they should trust us because we know our heart and intention, motives, etc. So I thought these questions were so good. Would you run through them and then maybe pick 1 or 2 of them that you think, gosh, I think for leaders in particular, keeping these questions in mind is really important as we're trying to build trust with others?
Yeah, most definitely. And I do want to say that I did like put that framework based off of Henry Cloud's book Trust. It's a great book. But the 5 questions that people are asking before they trust you is, 1, do you understand me? And I feel like this is probably the first domino that has to be there, right? I mean, I know for me personally, I know this may not be the case for any other husbands that are listening, but I remember whenever me and my wife first got married, that she would come to me with problems. And I thought to myself, well, the reason that she's coming to me with problems is obviously because I'm brilliant, right?
Of course.
And so
Yes.
let me give you this 7-step plan for how to fix your problem. And believe it or not, Jenni, she would say, I don't feel like you understand me. I don't feel like you're listening. And I said, well, do you not see like the 7-step plan? Would you like 10 steps?
MJ, that never happens in the Catron house ever.
No. I figured it was only in mine.
Yeah.
But what I found was that depending on how she's expressing herself to me, that should impact my response. But the way that I've learned that is by understanding what her needs are. And our teams are a lot of the same way, right?
Yeah.
Hey, do you understand what's beneath the surface of my concern, right?
Yep.
Do you have enough context on who I am to where now you know how to effectively lead me that may be a little different than everybody else? I know that for me, I'm really big on clear communication, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was because when I was 19 years old, I did an internship at a Big 4 accounting firm. I'm not going to say which one it was, but I did an internship at a Big 4 accounting firm, and I would show up on time and I would leave right on time. And I was friendly and everything to everyone. But then when we got to the end, Jenni, what happened was they told me, we're going to ding you some marks on your internship performance. I was like, what? Was there something that I didn't do? And they said, no, you did everything, but like all the other interns just know that like the world of big four accounting firms is you show up early, you stay late, you know, you do more than the bare minimum. And I didn't know that at 19.
Nobody told you that.
Nobody told me that at 19. And I'm like, if y'all would have told me that, then I would have done it. But now I'm getting these marks and it's the end of the summer and I'm on my way back to campus and there's nothing I can do to fix. And so for me, like in the professional environment, clear communication of expectations is very, very important because I know what it's like to think I'm hitting a mark and not hit it, right?
That's so big. Yep.
And so people who understand that context who are leading me would know, let me make sure MJ knows that he is like, we're crystal clear that there are multiple checkpoints along the way versus somebody else who will just trust me because they like my vibes, right? Like, these are two completely different leadership orientations. And so understanding is a big thing.
Yeah.
Motive isn't... Go ahead. Yeah, please.
I was going to say, before you go to motive, when you were telling me that, it sparked something because we do surveys with staff teams and, you know, to get do the assess phase of our framework of, hey, what's just the reality of the culture in that team? And there's a recent one that we did, and multiple places throughout the survey, different team members commented that they didn't think the senior leadership understood their job. They didn't understand what it takes for them to do their work. They feel like senior leadership is disconnected. So as soon as you said that, I was like, so it's creating the curiosity in my follow-up work with them to go, okay, we've got to figure out why do those team members feel like their leaders don't understand what their job, their role, their responsibilities, et cetera. There's an understanding gap. Like they don't feel understood. And it's impacting their culture. So I just wanted to call that out because it was like, whoo, ding, ding, ding. There it is.
Yeah, most definitely. And I love that you can like speak to that because all of that feeds into the trust recession, right?
Completely. Because there's a trust there. In this case, I'm looking at the data and I'm going, there's a trust gap between the staff and the executive leadership. And one of the things they are blatantly naming is that they don't understand.
Yep.
And so it just hits and reinforces that first one that you called out.
Oh, that's so interesting. You know, when I hear things like that, I'm just like, man, understanding is still a spectrum, right? It's not binary. So it's just like, is it that they don't understand how much effort it takes to do their job? And so they're putting more work on them? Or is it that they don't understand the timeline it takes for them to do their job? And so despite the output they wanted, twice the quality in half the time. Like it, like that. That's a very, very, very interesting. Oh, we could get down that rabbit hole. This may be a part one, part two. But
I was going to say, it's like that data in that survey. I'm like, we got some work to do. We got some work to do to get to the bottom of some of that.
Yeah,
Crazy.
Most definitely. Most definitely. No, that's really great. So understanding is a big key, and you see that in the work that you do, and seeing that it is the number one thing that you see as you work with teams and their culture. I think that for any leader that's listening, if there's one that you take away from this entire podcast, it is just, do I truly understand my team?
That's
and
good.
Does the team believe that I understand them?
Good.
Because I talked about predictability under normal conditions, predictability under stressful conditions. There are like 7 irreducible laws of trust that we won't get into, but like one of the irreducible laws that kind of plays into this is something called behavioral legibility. And what that means is, do people understand the actions that I am showing them, right? For example, sometimes when people in the corporate context, in the faith context, when they go through grief, people will say things along the lines of, man, I want to support them, but I'm nervous because I don't know what to say. I don't want to say the wrong thing.
Right.
I could say this and I meant this, but it was heard as that. And now there's a level of trust that's fractured because of misunderstanding. And so like the ability for there to be understanding both ways is important. And so employees think my senior leadership doesn't understand me. Wow, the senior leadership could have been in that same exact role 5 years ago, 7 years ago, 3 years ago, and they absolutely know. But they are not communicating through their behaviors that they know to make the employee feel understood. Does that make sense?
Makes so much sense. And I think it's so true. I think it's so, because even in this particular situation with this client, I feel pretty confident that the senior leaders do actually understand the role and what it takes to do the job, because to your point, they were promoted just a few years ago. Like, they've done the role at some point. But there's a gap in whether those leaders are doing the right things to make those employees feel like they do truly understand. And so that's where there's a gap there somewhere. There's more curiosity I've got to employ to like really dig into it, but super fascinating. Okay, you can make a choice, because we could keep doing this, but you've got work to do and I got work to do. So we're going to have to like either do a part 2 or... So my question to you is, do you want to pick one more and kind of unpack it for us of those questions? Or do you want to just give a quick overview of the other 4 questions?
I can give a quick overview of the other 4 questions. That is totally fine.
Okay, let's do that. And then, friends, we can try to recruit MJ back for another conversation at some point.
Okay, very cool, very cool. And so we have the understanding question. The second one is the motive question, which is, are you acting in my best interest or just yours?
That's big.
The third one is the ability question. Are you capable of doing what you claim you can do?
It takes a little bit of humility to ask that question too, doesn't it?
It does. It does. It absolutely does. The character question. Are you honest, ethical, and consistent? And even the track record question, which is, have you done this successfully before? Okay. And so there is the understanding, motive, ability, character, and track record question. And this is something for your podcast editor. They may take it out because it may not be appropriate for your audience, but I will just say this, no extra charge, is that for those people who are people of faith, the reason why you can trust in God is because he's 5 for 5 on all of these questions. Yeah. He absolutely understands. He absolutely has pure motives. He has the ability to do exceedingly abundantly above all we can ask or think. He has perfect character and a track record over millennia that proves that he is able to do what you are believing him to do. And so I think that that's what makes our faith so strong. But I know this ain't a Christian podcast, so your editor may take that out. But no, I just want to at least mention how these questions that we could ask God are also questions that we could ask of ourselves and ask of our teams as well. Before we even promote somebody or before we hire somebody, this is a great framework to consider.
So good. MJ, good grief. This whole concept of trust, I do think, because of just the skepticism in our culture at large, I think leaders have to pay attention to putting in work to build trust. Like, I think our tendency is to say, or to assume that people will trust us because, I have rarely met a leader who had really horrible intentions. Most leaders I meet that last for any significant amount of time really want to do good work. They want to honor their teams and build great teams and do good work. And we have a lot of leaders that listen that are in faith-based or mission-based organizations. So they're doing work that has deep, impactful meaning. And so I think sometimes we just assume people understand, and there's that understanding question again. But I think every leader would do themselves a service and their teams a service by paying attention to the trust piece. Those, you talked so much about the predictability thing and how critical that is. You talked about, and we didn't even get into making deposits and building equity and all of that. So we can dig into that later. But anyway, I think if we started with those 5 questions, it would be phenomenal. So MJ, any other thought you want to leave our leaders with today? One last way you'd coach us before we wrap up?
Yeah, for sure. I would say that everything that you want is on the other side of trust. If you want more clients, it's on the other side of trust. If you want a strong team, it's on the other side of trust. And thankfully, trust is not a genetic trait. I and Jenni, I know that this may be an audio-only podcast, but, I cannot look like Jenni, and Jenni cannot look like me, right? Like there are just certain genetic things that was the roll of the dice. But trust is not a genetic trait. It is a skill that can be learned. And if you learn the skill of trust, it will get you further, faster with the people that matter most.
That's so good. MJ, thank you so much. If people want to connect more with you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, the best way to connect with me, honestly, is just follow me on Instagram, at Mr.MJ Pittman. And then also my website, mjpittman.com. And then if you ever want me to dig deeper on trust with your team, if you're a leader, I'm more than happy to do that. You can find me on one of those platforms.
Brilliant. Awesome. MJ, thank you so much. Leaders, good grief. So many good things to get us thinking. And I really do hope you'll take away some key thoughts that MJ shared with us today, those questions. Even if you start with those questions, just a massive opportunity for us to lead ourselves well, to lead others better. So thanks for joining us today, you guys. We're grateful for your faithfulness in leading well. Share this episode with other leaders on your team. You definitely want to share this with some other leaders, have some good conversations around it. And then we will see you back here next week.